What's up, friends? This is Manni and welcome to the honest and 100% complete review to the new L-21 WOLF light fighter coming into Star Citizen today or tomorrow with a 4.3 update. With one of the ridiculously fastest F7C kills I've seen in a while by a light fighter. Completely deleted that thing. Oh man. The next part we're gonna look at, or one thing that's part of the video, is the ship tour, looking at the sound and animations and the ship itself. Then we're gonna try and fit it into a Carrack, which is gonna be an interesting thing. We're looking at the meta loadouts and also looking at stealth capabilities. We're trying to get rid of the fin and see how that goes. We're making a size comparison in this video between F7 Bucceneer and the Meteor. We're looking at some skins, and then we have even a PvP dogfight versus a Buccaneer at the end of this video. So this thing is packed with content, so that hopefully after watching this video you have all your questions answered. And if that is the case and you like this review, then please stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, and follow me to the next videos as well. So, ship tour first, my friends. We're here with Channy, my friend, who has spawned this ship. Somehow, for me, copying the PTU files has taken forever, and so he spawned his ship first. We have a nice weapon rack in the left back side of the ship, and on the left back side of the wing, you have the entrance to the ship. Now, walking around on the ship, you have the fuel intake on the left front side, and on both wings, you have underneath the 4 size 1 missiles. Okay, then you have that nice looking pointy end in the front, and that looks a little bit like a yacht or a boat. And then the big engine nacelles left and right with a lot of exposed engines. To the right back side of the wing, opposed to where you normally enter the ship, on the other side, you would have a storage compartment with 650k. So should fit a lot of stuff in there, and then we're jumping into the ship. And this goes by actually running over the wing. Very interesting. Also, I love the fact that the design of the ship is made so that the cockpit sits further back. You see the front of the ship, you see the wings when you're flying, and look how we're unfolding those guns. All you need to do is power the ship and the guns will come out. Obviously, you can press P for the disable weapons, and I believe it fires back in. Did you hear that? Let's hear it from inside. Whoa! Did you hear that? Oh man, a Porsche's a joke against that. Then we're firing the double-size 4s. Very nice. Cool animation that you can see. Also, the sound is nicely muffled from within the cockpit. Very well done. Design-wise, nothing beats CIG when it comes to the design of their ships. It is fantastic. Also, how the weapons unfold and fold back in. The animation is brutal. Unfortunately, bespoke guns means we're not going to be able to switch them out, and there is a lot of reason to do that. We'll see this later in the combat section. While I was able to make, in the intro, as you've seen, a very fast kill on the F7A, I'm going to show you the battle against more tanky targets, such as in Hull A. And it is crazy how much you're going to have to fire at them. Now, you see the fin comes out as soon as you retract the landing, or the landing gear, yeah? As soon as you do that, the fin will come out. So you have no choice whether or not you want the fin to be there or not. The maneuverability of the ship is fantastic. It's like an arrow. But in case you are like me and you don't like that fin, you're trying to get rid of it, let me just tell you right now, it's not going to be easy. We fired at it with guns, although I forgot to turn off my shields at first. I turned it off then, but apparently the shield takes time to go off, so it was still slightly on. And on the PTU, no one has ammo on the starting home location, so we had exactly 1 magazine, half of which went into the clip. Then I've probably done this collision. I haven't filmed it all for you, or I did film it, but I didn't put it into the video. I probably did this collision 20 times where I rammed this fin against the ground. The freaking fin just stays. I don't know. And every time you ram it in, because it's located on the further back, also your nose snaps down onto the ground and takes damage. So I was like, okay, let's be tricky. Let's just come in sideways. I finally got rid of the fin, but unfortunately it also ended up crashing, or, well, damaging the nose of the ship. So now I'm no longer combat ready. So, So if you think it's going to be super easy to get rid of that fin, unfortunately it's not. Now, let's start comparing the new Kruger L-21 versus the Buccaneer. As you can see, the Buccaneer being a light fighter too, both ships are like a bit of a cross between interceptor and light fighter, if you were to ask me. And both of them are rather small. However, the Buccaneer has a much shorter design with a wider wingspan, though. Also sits higher with the landing gear, whereas of course the Wolf is thinner but much longer. So you might be able to fit the Wolf into a ship that the Buccaneer couldn't fit because of the wider wingspan, or the other way around. Now you see, compared to a Meteor, which just happened to land right there, both ships are really small appearing, but the Meteor is a medium fighter. Now, how does it look against another very popular light fighter, the F-7A? Which is basically still kind of a meta fighter overall, as a good cross between great firepower, great mobility overall, and also good survivability. To my surprise, the new Wolf has actually the same length as an F-7A, maybe even a slight little bit longer. Nah, maybe the same, but they're like both almost identical on the length. Of course, the F7 has also here a wider wingspan, and it has a bigger belly, and it is higher. But we're gonna see if the Wolf fits into the Carrack in a moment. But I can tell you this much: the F7A has basically the same length. So that's not really small for our Wolf, right? Here's a skin with the gray and golden, and then there is the red with the dark gray on the back where the gold was on the other side. And this is basically the two-color design that you will find here on the ship. Here in this case, on the starting ship with no skin, it's silver with red on the back. Now, let's have a look at the Carrack, okay? We're positioning our ship in the only way it could possibly fit, because lengthwise, you're not going to fit it at all. I had to put it like slightly diagonal, once the hangar doors are fully open for a moment, it looked like we might be able to get it in. Getting in, dipping the back in first, and then going all the way back. But you see the tip on the front is still over the ramp. And we're also too high, so that ramp could not close. And if it was closing and somehow enclose the ship inside the hull of the Carrack, it would just bug around like crazy. It would flip and clip and, it would just be a nightmare to have in there. So unfortunately, I can tell you that the Wolf does not fit into the Carrack. And that was a bit of a downer for me, because I considered this a super tiny fighter. And then I noticed, unfortunately, it is not, because you know what fits inside? I think the Arrow fits inside, right? Into the Carrack. In any case, we're fighting against an Arrow right now. From the Gillies Flight School. I believe that was mission 3 or something like this, or 2. Not sure, I think 2 it was. The Arrow is pretty maneuverable, giving me not the easiest targeting against it. It's flying some nice maneuvers, but with 1,650 meters per second projectile speed, we're looking at the exact stats in just a second, I'm able to hit that Arrow pretty well, despite some maneuvers being flown here, and it doesn't take too long for the ship to go destroyed. However, you saw that the Arrow died the moment its shields were depleted, so since we had to deplete the entirety of its shields anyways, we did not benefit from the projectile's ability to bypass shields, right? You could argue that you can benefit from that if you destroy a target before you had to take down the shields, but since no target literally dies before the shields were depleted also, we don't really get to benefit from the shield breaking ability. On the contrary, we get to suffer the 50% damage penalty that armor absorption provides. You see the combat against the Gladiator was right there. Now we have another F-7A, and this one takes much longer, because it might be an interesting thing that the same ship takes a lot longer to be destroyed this time, even though my aim is not any worse here. I'm pretty good on him, but the problem is, sorry, that was the same one from the beginning. All right, I got a little confused. Here we are with the other one I meant. And my aim is still pretty good. It might not be quite as nice as on the first run, but we're right there. And, just hammering onto the F7. But you'll see that the ship just behaves differently. So we're hitting different sides of the ship, which is not always under your control. Because if a fast light fighter just turns around, gives you different sides, there isn't much other things you can do other than hammer it and pepper it with your projectiles. And that's what I'm doing. And I actually had to cool down the weapon already once and overheated it. And now, shortly before overheating a second time, the F7C says goodbye. But you see how much longer it can take if you don't hit the perfect same spot constantly, but because the ship is just flying maneuvers and showing you different angles, okay? And here we have damage sponges. Very important part of this video also is to show you how you're gonna be with this ship, in what situation, if you have like a more tougher opponent to fight. The Hull A is not exactly a threat to me here at all, but it just has a lot of HP. And we're firing projectile rounds that, as you know, only do 50% damage against the enemy hull or armor, right? In that case here, because there is no armor particularly like in that sense just yet in the game. And so we're just doing, yeah, the enemy has a 50% damage resistance against projectile-based weapons is what I'm saying. So our 1350 DPS against stats in a moment are basically halved. We're only firing with about 700, with about 700 DPS, effectively. Even when the shields are gone, right? I've managed to fire the right part or back part already red, but the ship is still tanking it. It's a damage sponge. And this is, by the way, with the leg pip being used, right? We're not using the auto-aim lead pip. That was the leg pip where I have manual control over where exactly I want to fire at. Of course, you could use the sniper mode. You can do that as well. But then you're gonna fire with a slower round per minute. Using sniper mode, you have, I believe, a 30 or 40% decreased rate of fire. 30%, I believe. And now we're using the lead pip, the regular default auto-aim lead pip that you guys know. Yes, I did make the leg, the pip larger, in case you're wondering. I'll show you after this battle how it's done, for those who are wondering why my pip is larger. It is very helpful to do this thing, to see it under every situation when there's a planet behind the enemy ship and so on. It's good to have the pip larger, and after this battle I display to you how this works, okay? But just so much ahead now, using the auto-aim regular lead pip, you see we're peppering the ship even much longer than before. Because now I don't really have the control so much over exactly where I want to hit, unless I use here the sniper mode, the precision mode, and fire with a lower rate of fire, but exactly where I want to land the shots, you know? But yeah, so it takes longer. Which is why I'm showing you this. My advice here, if you have tougher targets, switch to leg pip and aim at a certain part of the enemy ship, of which you know it is a vital part that eventually gives up and destroys the rest of the ship as well. Okay, so we're almost done now. Enemy ship is not going to make it much longer. Let's make a nice maneuver here at the end, get really close, sit right behind this thing, and there we go. All right, got it. Now, let's go into the meta loadouts and also checking out the stealth capabilities, because it can become stealthy. Now, you see we have the L-21 WOLF here, a light fighter, size 2, with 230 meters per second SCM speed, 1225 NAV speed, mobility of an arrow, basically. Hit point parts on body and nose is a 1750, and I heard about 1500 on the nacelles, if that's true. Claim times are very fast with 4 minutes/1 minute. Relentless gun brings 950 rounds per minute with 67 damage per projectile, okay? 300,000 or 280,000 altogether damage in the clip with 4,200 rounds in that entire drum. 1,650 meters per second projectile speed is super good to hit fast targets at up to almost 4,000 meters, right? Although you're probably not going to hit at that range, at least not small targets. 4,200 HP is also pretty good for the weapons. They don't fall off too easily. Palisade shield, Breton power plant for maximum power distribution points. We have the zero rush meta components here for a cooler, and I would suggest definitely to remove one of the two coolers, because you free up points to get maximum distribution of points into engines and shields, okay? Use the Colossus drive in this size category. It has the highest efficiency and gives you 75 gigameters to range of quantum range. Very important, I would say. And you see the signatures are crazy. Let's go go into the stealth aspect. The 5.6k is the cross-section. We can't change that, but we can change EM and heat, and this is my change. I swapped between the tabs on there, and you see I've swapped regular versus stealth components. 6,500 heat and 4,400 EM. That is pretty stealthy with the cross-section of 5.6. You'll be able to get around 2.5 kilometers close without getting spotted. Sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the size of the enemy radar. Now, you see we are using the Shimmer Shield 1 or 2. It doesn't really change much because the EM goes down, but it's the lowest value anyways. And the Vapor Block, if we run 2 coolers, we have almost 8,000 heat signature. I would scrap 1 cooler and we go down to 6,500, but despite Aircool telling you go down to 4,000 when you remove both coolers, it's not true. You accumulate heat and the heat signature spirals out of control later. So go with at least 1 cooler, 1 stealth cooler in the cooler drive category. And then the Saphir drive with also a pretty good range. The Relentless gun brings 677 on paper DPS with 1,354 for both guns combined. But remember the 50% damage resistance that all enemies have against your projectile rounds, equaling out to about 700 effective DPS, which is pretty effective DPS since you have really high projectile speed. You can bring that on, but then again, remember you have an overheating system, which the energy weapons don't have. You don't have to deal with that. Right? You have an ammo problem at some point in time that the energy weapons don't have. The energy weapons don't care about armor resistance. They do full damage. And since you always have to drop the enemy's shields anyway, so what's the point of running ballistics at that point? My opinion, ballistics right now are absolutely dead in the game. They have no purpose to exist other than focusing out certain modules on high shielded and high HP targets such as Idris, Polaris, stripping them of turrets, point defenses, certain modules, engines, and so on. That is one legit point where I say projectiles can make a difference. We're here meanwhile in battle versus my friend in PvP with his back Buccaneer. By the way, he's not a PvP player, okay? Let's put that out there. Yes, I know, he's probably not flying as good as some of you guys might be able to do it yourselves, okay? But it is still an interesting battle, and it's easy, very easy to dodge his counter shots with the mobility given by the Wolf. But yeah, so another situation on how projectiles can work in PvP or whatever is if you make hit and run maneuvers, none of you ever loses shield, but the guy firing ballistics will eventually outdamage the guy with the energy weapons because some bleed-through is always happening. Now, this is it for the gameplay part. Let's have a look at the price and the skins, and then we're over at the end. All right, let's come to the price and my honest conclusion about the ship at the end, okay? So, I'm glad I was wrong because I thought it was gonna come in at about $130, $40. It sits at $107 for the concierge and regular price, and $120 if you want to use store credits. Now, the 107 concierge variant comes with an exclusive skin that I'll show you in a second. It is going to be this one here, the so-called heat sink paint. This is one that you cannot get in the paint pack that is also available for everyone, where they have the Rift Walker, the Red Rosso, the camo over there, the Sylvan, and the Frost camo, okay? So those are available for purchase directly, but the other one, the so-called heatsink, this one here, is only available as a bundle with the concierge variant. Something that I don't like, CIG, is that you have not provided a Warbound CCU upgrade to the Wolf. As a new ship, offering the upgrade when being sold, it should, this discount, I mean, it should also offer the discount in the upgrade. So you could go and save a couple of bucks on right now upgrading from a ship that you already have. So I think this should be definitely taken into account and realized in a few moments, hopefully soon. Now, when it comes to the purpose of this ship and my honest conclusion, is it something that you have to have, that you don't want to miss out on? No. I initially thought it might be because I thought it was a tiny ship with double size 4 firepower, therefore being able to be fit into tiny places where other stronger ships don't fit. For example, a Starlancer tack hangar or a Carrack hangar. But as you have seen, it doesn't fit into the Carrack. Why? Because it has the same length of an F7A, and that is too long for this tiny ship, if you ask me. and it sits somewhere between a light fighter in size and an interceptor in mobility, which is good. It has a fantastic, unique design. It looks great, and I can definitely see a lot of people really loving the ship. And I know with its mobility, it's going to be a lot of people who, if they pilot this thing well, have a great good maneuvers, have good aim at the same time, and counter the enemy movement on their end. I think you can dogfight with this pretty well and probably come out victorious in a lot of battles. However, somebody just lasering you down with Badger, Panther, and Rhinos on an F7A with 1,800 meters per second, he's gonna hit you, and you're not taking a lot of damage with that little wolf. So there might be some battles that you just don't want to take. But then at the end of the day, it always depends on your pilot skill and the one of your opponent, right? In any case, it is a fantastic design. I like that the price point, it sits lower than I thought at about $100, $107. That seems relatively fair to me. There is no, you don't have an interior in the ship. You just really can fly it yourself. Love how the cockpit sits further back. The big elephant in the room, however, and that is a big problem for me, it seems to be like a trend that comes more and more, is the bespoke guns. Same as the Meteor, it comes with a bespoke gun, a big downside for me. And in this case here also. On the Meteor maybe even more, because it has a super slow projectile speed and you can't change it for something faster. At least this one here brings fast projectile speed to the table with a lot of ammo capacity where you don't have to worry about it as much. But then again, it is still a projectile weapon that suffers from the 50% armor resistance penalty that all ships have. That effectively counter your damage output with that. And the fact that you always have to drop any shield anyways on a light fighter before you can drop it also destroys the purpose or defeats the purpose of projectile weapons. I can see it being used to maybe strip certain larger ship of modules, turrets, point defenses, and so on, but I cannot really see the point in running projectiles, for example, in PvP, because they're just inferior in every way right now, and unless CIG really does something to counter that, I don't see projectiles in that case being very popular, mostly because of the armor resistance. At least the projectiles are fast, you can hit with it, and that's a good plus, but I hate it when I cannot change the loadout of my ship. I'm playing Star Citizen, a huge sandbox, open, free universe where I want to play my ship, my own ship that I bought, that I've earned, the way I want to. And if I can't do that because CIG increasingly more and more decides that this weapon is going to on this ship and you're not going to be able to change something about it, that defeats kind of this sandbox style where you can find your own play style and play how you like, And that is really a big no-no for me, a big downside, and I hope that CIG is not going to continue this trend of putting more and more ships out with bespoke weapons. The Perseus coming up soon, bespoke guns, right? And so on. But yeah, let's leave it as that. I don't think the ship is something that you have to own. However, it is something very nice. It seems to be a relatively round, well-designed package. It doesn't have a crazy flaw in any way where you're like, oh my goodness, this like, it doesn't work, yeah? Where like the Meteor, for example, that has a lot of nice pros, but then again, you will not hit anything with those slow cannons that is even remotely on the move, So, at least not smaller things. But yeah, so there is no crazy weakness standing out. It seems like a good package for the price point. I would definitely give green light for anybody who is interested in this ship to have it. I would, however, wish that the fin could be retracted with the the right Alt plus a K combo, right? The one that folds the wings on the Corsair and so on. That this button could be used here to fold the wing in, and for those who just don't want to fly with it, okay? Maybe fit the ship into something tighter and so on. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. That was a long also outro here with my opinion, but I feel like there's a lot to say about it. And I think I've said that. So let's stay tuned for the next videos where we also test to strip larger ships with the projectile guns. Let's see how well that works. Those are only size 4 after all, but then again, 2 of them, right? So let's see how that works. See you then, and Manni signing off. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.